Kelty was one of the faithful Oiler nation who are still a little bit in mourning. I know there are others. We let you in regardless of your loyalty to different sports teams, but we're with you guys as you grieve the loss. I'm Jeff. Glad you're here this morning, everyone. Question right off the top. When you grew up, when you were growing up as a kid, what was your go-to candies? If you were given like $1, now depending on how old are you, maybe it was like 25 cents, or maybe it was like $2 or whatever. These days, $8. Going into 7-Eleven, where were you focused in the candy aisle? What were your go-tos? Any offerings? What were the candy? Yes, right there. Licorice Jawbreaker. Wow. There you go. Hey. Sour keys. Oh, sour keys. Yes. Actually, I called them sour Soothers. They were my go-to too. One of them. I don't know if many of you helped yourselves to them on your way in. I bet some of you were kind of doing these, kind of landing in the pockets. Maybe not. Yes. Okay. There's a few. These were my go-to. I remember one time buying a whole bag of them. I just went all in on sour Soothers. That's what we call them. They're bigger. And I put those things away. When you put them in your mouth, they're instant jolt of sour, right? But then you kind of suck off all that stuff, and then you get down to that chewy, sweet goodness too. Oh man, it was like crack cocaine. I'd put those things in my mouth. They're just going down, eh? And without even realizing it, about an hour later, I noticed my tongue was a little sensitive. Anyone ever felt that? But I kept on putting those things down, and it's like, oh, man, my tongue. I had no idea what was going on. By that night, I could barely touch anything to my tongue. It was like the citric acid on these things. You do enough of that stuff, it'll like burn your taste buds right off your tongue. My mouth was raw after it was all done. Have you ever done that? You ever just overindulged in something and then it kind of wrecked it? Come on, of course you have. It might even be the best song, the song that you heard come over the radio at one point. You're just like, oh my God, I love that song. And then you just put it on repeat, hey? And if you don't, the radio station does too. And they just keep playing it until you find yourself at that point where you hear that song, you're going, I can't listen to that song again. I'm done. Hey? Ever had that happen? My son was in grade 9. When Kathy and I were away, he went to a party without us knowing and over-imbibed on vodka. And to this day, he says the smell, nope, can't do it. As a parent, it's like, when they're younger anyways, it's like, oh, isn't that what happens? Overindulgence. A lot of it happens these days with the consumption of social media. It sneaks up. And all of a sudden you go, what am I doing? It's been how many hours I've been on this thing? And I kind of feel sick to my stomach. I just don't feel much better. Or TV. Like back in the day, man, we had 3 channels. And all the programming on it, I hated it. But, you'd kind of take it in little doses these days. You pick your poison, man. My wife loves Carol Burnett, the old shows. Nowadays, you could watch Carol Burnett literally around the clock if you wanted it. You take your thing, you put it on that particular channel, and it just plays exactly what you love over and over and over. It's a day and age where you find the thing that gives you pleasure, man, and you can just OD on it, seems like so quick. What's your poison? My pleasure, I've made no bones about it, is golf. I never thought there was any such thing as having too much until my brothers and brother-in-laws and my dad, we planned a big golf trip down in Phoenix. We picked out 8 of the highest profile public courses we could. These were like the stuff you see in magazines, gorgeous courses. We did 8 rounds in 6 days. I never would have admitted that there is any such thing as too much golf, but I hit that point. By about day 5, I was, okay, I'm tapping out right now, but we went through with it. I was reading a blog the other day, a guy named Jim Hamill. He traveled around the world. He actually wanted to travel to as many countries as he could in 1 year, is what he wrote. In the beginning of my trip, he said, each country I visited increased my level of happiness. He said, if the list of countries was listed along the horizontal x-axis, and my level of happiness was on the y-axis going up, he said, right away, with every country I was visiting, my y-axis, my happiness was just climbing like crazy. But he says, the more I traveled, the more difficult it was to increase my happiness. As it was going up, he says, at some point, flattened out. I maxed out my travel efficiency. The line extended to the right with each new country that I was visiting, but it never went higher. He said, by the end of the trip, I was traveling for the sake of traveling. I loved international travel. I loved visiting new countries. Then I stopped loving international travel. I lost the excitement. I reached a point where there was no next awesome. I remember that feeling when I was on the golf course going, oh, I can't wait till we golf this course. Oh, but tomorrow, Wecopod, that is going to be unbelievable. Oh, tomorrow, it's going to be Quintero. And then you get there and you go, by the end of the week, we're picking apart these courses that were more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen. We're picking them apart. Didn't like the green. This Jim says the extreme of around the world travel turned travel into a chore. He said it became a mind trick to convince myself that an activity or a new country was worth the time and the money. A mind trick. He says I had to hack my brain to think, oh, this is going to be worth it. By taking what I loved to an extreme, I destroyed the love. You know, the band played that One Republic tune, Counting Stars. And didn't they do an amazing job? Like, that was fantastic. I didn't hear you guys rehearsing it today. Woo! That was so good. I know a lot of people will read into lyrics and hear different things, but when I saw that song, some of the lines that stood out to me lately, I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the ways or the things that we could be. But baby, I've been praying hard. Said, no more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars. Then it goes into the bridge. Take the money and watch it burn. Sink it in the river, the lessons I've learned. There's another point in the song that talks about everything I love, everything is pain. It kills me. Everything that kills me makes me feel alive. I'm reading through these lyrics and I see a guy who has been disillusioned with the chase, thinking, man, when I get X number of dollars, when the bank account hits this far, when I get all these, then. And it's like constant reaching. And then finally he gets this point and he's going, I don't think it's happening. I don't think that thing is ever going to land in my palm. Today, I want to invite you to think deeply about the things that you may be pursuing, the good things of life, and the corresponding happiness levels that they're delivering. Sometimes thinking deeply about this is a fantastic exercise. And I didn't even really realize it until recently. I was reading some of the philosophy of the Stoics, got me onto this topic. I don't know if you're familiar with Stoic philosophy, but these Stoic philosophers, they thought a lot about the dangers of excess and the ways that it can spoil pleasure. If you're not familiar with Stoicism, it's been around a long time. They figure it kind of showed up on the scene about 300 BC. For thousands of years, very prominent world leaders, successful people have been paying attention to the wisdom of the Stoics. They thought deeply about what life can be, what brings out the best in life. They all were kind of in the pursuit of what they call summum bonum, which in Latin means the highest good. They were in pursuit of the highest good, the best kind of life. To the Stoics, the thing that could bring about the highest good was virtue, to live with virtue. That's kind of was their big thing. Live virtuously. The word virtue, I found that a little slippery. It's not a word that I use a lot, and I wouldn't have even known how to describe it. But they're like character traits, tools that you develop in your way of being in this world that will shape your behaviors and your attitudes, your choices in life. The Stoics believed that there were kind of 4 big virtues that you should chase after, that you should develop and have in your toolbox. 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. They said all the virtues hang under these 4. These are the 4 big ones. If you want to develop something in your life, if you want to develop some solid character traits, go after these 4. They said everything, all the good things in life follow the development of this stuff. That was their conclusion. As I was reading about these virtues, I've talked a lot about wisdom over the years. I've talked at different times about justice. Maybe less so about courage, but the one I know I haven't talked a lot about is temperance. Just the word temperance kind of feels like a wet blanket to me. Like they also call it self-control or moderation. Ew. It's like, wet blanket. It's a buzzkill person right there, right? I have to admit, I didn't like the sound of it at first, but as I read about it, quickly I began to realize there is something very potent within this concept that is not being talked much about today. It was Marcus Aurelius, one of the famous Stoics, who said, if you seek tranquility, do less. Or more accurately, do what's essential. Because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. Then he closes, he says, ask yourself at every moment, is this essential? I'm like, whoa, I don't like asking that question. I like asking, do I feel like it? Do I want it? Do you want it? That's not the question the Stoics would ask. Stoics would ask, is it essential? Aristotle, thinking about this very concept, he coined the phrase the golden mean, which explains that virtue is found firmly in the middle between excess and deficiency. The Stoics said, shoot for the middle. Doesn't make a great motivational poster, does it? Just do it, but don't overdo it. It's like, whoa, It's like, yeah, okay. Temperance. Oh, Epictetus. He's another famous Stoic. He said, curb your desire. Don't set your heart on so many things, and you'll get what you need. It's the wisdom under this I want to unpack today. Temperance is the knowledge that abundance comes from having what is essential. I'm wrapping my head around that because I think we all want abundance. We all want enough. Whether that's pleasure, joy, happiness, it would say abundance is found in figuring out what is essential. Temperance is kind of like setting cruise control. It keeps you from speeding. That's what my wife always says, hey, you got your cruise control on? There's some kind of comfort she finds if I say, yeah, it's on. Oh, okay, good. Kind of keeps you from speeding up too far. But you know what? This whole concept of temperance is keeping you from going too slow too. Saying you don't have to steer yourself into complete deficiency. But can you keep it in the middle, the golden mean? Yeah, not very sexy. Especially in today's world where it says, it's kind of like if you're not first, you're last, right? In some way. If you're not at the top of the pack, you're lagging. If you don't have more than most, can you truly be happy? When I think about temperance, I think about all those people who always order salads for their side. The annoying ones, eh? I won't ask you to point out who you are this morning. I have a feeling there's a few of you, or who ordered cranberry sodas at the party. They're the ones that are saying, no, I'm not doing shots, guys. I'm not doing shots. It's like, come on, pal. Just having a good time. No. They set the limits. They're like, I got myself on cruise control tonight. These are the ones that demonstrate discipline. They get in their 10,000 steps every day, even if it's 10 o'clock at night. They're running around the block. They got to... I'm sorry if that's you this morning. Hey, my hat's off to you. By some standards, society would say they're the boring ones. And they are boring until the excess starts to chip away at your own well-being and your own happiness levels. That's when the beauty of this temperance really becomes obvious. You end up with a DUI. You end up with a bunch of debt from some impulsive spending. You end up with a broken relationship because you just made one too many poor choices. Maybe you end up with a preventable health condition. Someone was saying, back off the fries, pal. Just a little less. Portion control. Boring. And then you get the doctor's appointment. And then all of a sudden the temperance is actually a beautiful thing, right? Stoics would say, stop. Whoa. Is that essential? Trust me. Is that essential? It's interesting, these old Stoics that have been saying these things for thousands of years, they wouldn't know any of the modern research that's coming out right now. If you would have said the word dopamine, they would have went, what's that? This is pre-science. All they were talking about was what they had witnessed in their world, in their own lives, in the lives of people around them. But I'm going to tell you right now, I want to shift gears here, and I want to tell you why, according to modern science, what they were saying thousands of years ago actually makes sense for you and I today. For some of you, this is just, yep, Yep, you learn this, but we need perhaps this morning just a fresh reminder. Scientists today are saying that a lot of one's success in developing temperance and self-control is closely linked to our understanding and relationship with dopamine. Much of our behavior, the cravings we have, the desire for certain things, the hit, the buzz, is driven by chemicals in our brain, whether we realize it or not. You find something you love. Did you know just the thought of eating something that you really enjoy sets off a chemical reaction in your brain, spiking dopamine levels? In the morning, when I get out of bed, I have one thought: coffee. Let's go. And just the thought, I didn't realize this. It's not the coffee hitting my tongue. It's actually just the thought of that coffee. Oh, it's going to be a good one this morning, Jeff. You're going to make a real rich. All of a sudden, Jeff's happy. The thought of it, all of a sudden, dopamine starts spiking. When you take something that brings you joy, there are brain chemicals firing away. And that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like the motivational drug, they say. It will get us to do a lot of different things when we're chasing that thing. The problem is there are certain things that we chase that create dopamine spikes. But just by their nature, what ends up happening is the dopamine then crashes as soon as we've done them. You take a bunch of sugar, you feel that high, whoa, that tastes so good, whatever, and then comes the low. Now, I could name a whole bunch of different things that we will do, that we'll take on, that spikes dopamine and then causes a real unhealthy crash. But you do that enough times, what ends up happening is we start building a resistance. And that thing that once gave you such a thrill, all of a sudden doesn't spike the way it once did. Have you noticed that? I step onto the golf course and it doesn't feel the same way. It's like, Sometimes it can be so subtle, but over time, if you're not aware of what's going on, you truly still believe that, this next time, or actually, I just need something a little bit better, and then I'll get it. Challenge is to try to get a healthy understanding of dopamine and then start looking for ways to be able to handle those spikes, managing them in an effective way. You know, let me just take an aside. Growing up in the church, and even as a pastor later on in life, I used to tell people, you're looking for the next thrill. You get the job, you get the money, you get the car, you get the house, and you're still looking for it, right? You're still waiting for the thing that'll give you the... And I would say, because I was taught this, nothing will ever satisfy except religion. So I was just peddling a different product. I was going, but hey, have you met Jesus? Now, that sounds irreverent, but I want you to understand that there were many people I sold Jesus as the thing that would always deliver, only to watch them with the dopamine spikes getting lower and lower at church every week, and them wondering, what have I done? I must not be praying enough. You know what? I haven't been going to church enough. I think I might have something wrong with me. I don't know if God's upset with me. It created all kinds of ugliness inside people as they were trying to find this thrill, trying to find... The Stoics would say, try less is more. Now, I want to just talk about some practical ways that we can maybe practice temperance in our lives and perhaps allow us to start experiencing some healthy highs. Pleasure's not wrong. Can we just agree on that? It's not wrong. Jeff, celebrating the Oilers win when they come together. I mean, the thrill, the celebration, the citywide, it's a healthy thing. I'm saying that even as a diehard Calgary Flame fan. It's not a bad thing. You pick your pleasure in most things that you really enjoy. I will not stand up on the stage and say, how dare you chase that pleasure. Most things, as long as they're lawful, okay? Let me just put that out. But there are some things that you can do that can restore perhaps the hit. Let me just talk about a few of them. One is to keep track of your compulsions. Awareness is the first step to seeing what are the things that you're chasing. Would you know what things you habitually look for in a day that bring you a certain amount of pleasure? What are? They might be really subtle. They might be something bigger. Is it a time with friends? Is it a glass of wine over dinner? Is your Tim Hortons run every morning? Certain music that you love listening to all the time? What are the things that you're looking for? Maybe it's interaction with your grandkids or your own kids or your parents. Maybe it's a sport, a hobby. Would you know the things that are spiking your dopamine on a regular basis? That's important. Very important data. Start tracking it. They say smartphones now are becoming probably the number one dopamine dealer. On average now, they say people are spending a third of their day checking their phones. Most of it unconsciously, not realizing how much dopamine is getting spiked every time they look for it. And unfortunately, each time it's getting just a bit lower and a bit lower. Know where your compulsions, know where your hits are coming from. Secondly, consider a pleasure diet. This is interesting. Anna Lemke, she's a Stanford professor, psychiatrist. She had a patient who became obsessed with online shopping. Really delivered something for him, and so he developed kind of a habit. Eventually, though, new packages lost their thrill, and he began piling up large debt. Couldn't stop buying, though. Now it had become kind of a process and a bit of an addiction. Instead of pills, Lemke prescribed a full month without online shopping. She said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go cold turkey. And he agreed. He said, okay, I'll try this. Over a month, his compulsion gradually cleared up. And he started feeling natural highs again, such as the buzz of anticipation for seeing friends. These were some pieces that had gone missing in his life. All of a sudden, he started noticing, actually, he was feeling joy from some of these simple things that he wasn't feeling before. Now, Lemke would say not everyone needs 30 days, as far as a diet is concerned. She said she's seen people abstain for a week. I took coffee off for Lent one year. I was pretty proud of myself. That was hard. There were some hard days in there. Oh, did that coffee taste good when that thing was over? Shocking what it did for my relationship with coffee. She did say, though, on the other hand, some people need more aggressive interventions. As soon as we start talking about dopamine and dopamine addiction and the things that we chase to get the high, oftentimes there are people in that conversation who are looking and thinking, something's got me by the throat right now, and I don't have the option. I don't feel like I have the option of saying no to it. Now, I don't know if there would be anyone here or someone listening, but I got to tell you something. If that's you, I would love to just have a conversation with you. That's an ugly place in life to be. Maybe today might mark the beginning of something different for you. There's likely, though, people in this room who it's maybe not addictive. It's probably so subtle right now, you're not realizing that your joy levels, your happiness levels have dropped as much as they have. That's, I think, where I'm noticing things in my life. Where I can look at certain activities, certain things that I once did that used to just, I would look with such anticipation. Now, the pleasure diet, saying no to something, exposing yourself to a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of pain. Lemke wrote, we're living in a pain-phobic culture. We don't want to say no. We don't want to minimize the joy. We don't want to take away a pleasure. And yet it's almost so counterintuitive that by doing so, you get something in return that can be beautiful. By experiencing a little bit of pain, it actually spikes the pleasure later, only in a healthy way. They call this hormesis, well-timed deprivation. They say it can do wonders for pleasure. You put yourself in a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of pain, and the rewards are huge. Now, you've probably, if you've been watching much around, you've heard of ice baths. Okay, we're all going to take an ice bath this morning. I wonder, no. If you've heard of this, there is some incredible science behind this, but you put yourself in extreme cold, and your body starts reacting. You come out of the cold, and it starts sending endorphins flying through your system. It actually gets your dopamine shooting. And they said the high lasts way longer than many of the other things that we use unhealthily to spike dopamine. A cold shower. Who would have thought? Working out does the same thing. You see, like we're seeing this in society. People are doing that. Maybe they don't realize that these things actually can do wonderful things with regard to what we're feeling in terms of happiness and peace, joy. Sometimes it's not extreme pain. Sometimes it's just going without a little bit. Sometimes just saying, I'm not going to eat after 7. Or I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm going to save it for Fridays and Saturdays. This is what temperance sounds like. You take your thing, you take your pleasure, and all they would say is if you want to spike it, say no to it a little bit. Put some guardrails on it. Back it off. I might sound like a real buzzkill this morning, but maybe at some point you'll thank me for this. There's another thing that they said that was really interesting. Be wary of combining pleasures. This is associated with this pain. Often, maybe to work out, you go, well, it's easier to work out if I put in my earbuds and I can listen to my favorite music, and that helps motivate me to do this. And that might be what's needed to get you exercising. But the experts would say, just by turning it off sometimes, combining pleasures actually can work against you in terms of the impact of the dopamine spike. So sometimes working out without the music can actually have a greater effect once you're done. Crazy. So every now and then just saying, you know what, I'm just going to go without this one thing that I really enjoy. My coffee in the morning, what if I just said, I am actually intentionally going to hold off today until 10:30. And I'm just going to I'm going to dig deep here. I'm going to make this happen. And then I'm going to reach for that coffee and watch what happens. Research tells us we're highly motivated by pleasant surprises. If we give ourselves the same highly pleasurable combo every time, it becomes boring and predictable. Our brain picks up on the pattern and expects it, which then diminishes dopamine levels in the long run. Something to consider. Is there a combo that you work with on a daily basis? Even your drive to work, if you drive to work. And the things that you normally like to listen to, you just kind of get the cocktail going inside the cab. Even just saying, I'm going to drive in silence today. As an act of temperance for my own personal well-being. I'm going to avoid the Tim Hortons routine today. I'm going to do something different. And it might not feel good. There might be a level of discomfort. But I think this might be good for me. One last thing they talk about is meditation. The power of meditation. In a study done by Eric Garland, he's a distinguished professor at the University of Utah. He had a recovery program that he developed. It was a mindfulness recovery group. And he was treating opioid misuse, which is a problem these days. Big one. So those that were part of his program, he invited them into a practice of meditation every day. It was one of the big requirements of his program. In fact, when he looked at all the different things he did, he said this was probably one of the pieces that he insisted on the most. Just by the way, his program helped 45% of those that were taking his program recover from opioids. This was literally double those who are in psychotherapy recovery, normal psychotherapy for their recovery. Double. He looked at everything in his program. He said meditation, and all he asked them to do every day, I want you to meditate mindfully on savoring sunsets and other natural pleasures that are naturally occurring around you. I want you to just take a time out on life, and I want you to just look around and savor what's happening in the nature and the beauty around you. He would say, this has been a game changer for many. Let me wrap up. I don't know where your happiness or joy levels are right now with the pleasures that you're chasing. Hey, summer is a wonderful time. We expect a lot out of vacation, perhaps, warm weather. We plan a lot of different things with the hope of it really giving us what we want. That joy, that spike in our dopamine levels. But I'm betting that there will be some people here who are listening to this podcast who are in for a bit of a disappointment. It's already happening. Where that vacation you got planned, those special activities that you have designed, just don't quite deliver what you were expecting. And I think we have an opportunity to possibly move that dial up. Let me ask you something this morning. Would you be willing to track the things that right now in your life you're thinking are going to deliver? Would you be willing to track them? And kind of put your own relative measure on what they're doing right now for you. Would you be willing this week to take a little bit of a pleasure diet? Maybe over the next few weeks, in whichever way, to whatever degree you think it might serve you. Practicing some form of temperance where you go, normally I would say yes to this. Today, I'm not going to say yes to that as much. I'm going to do this. to be very deliberate about the thing that's bringing you pleasure. Just back it off a little bit. Apply some brakes. To figure out where that golden mean is. Where is the middle on that thing? Maybe it's a pleasure combination that you'd be willing to disrupt this week. I don't know what it could be. But I have this feeling that the Stoics were onto something good. And by just working at kind of applying a little temperance, we might actually begin to heighten our ability to experience some real pleasure around us like we haven't in a while. Just for reference, this message was for me. You need to know that. I'm using almost all my examples this morning. There are things that I count on that I would be best served. So wine it is on the weekends. Golf? I said no to golf last week. And I went out for an hour and a half last night and just practiced. I said no to all my golf buddies last week. Now, I had some other stuff going on, but it doesn't matter. I counted that as a no, okay? And I said, no, I'm not going. They thought I was going crazy. They're like, wait, what? But I went out last night on an evening, and I was just practicing, and I gotta say, just felt better. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe today, on a beautiful day like this, you could just, even on the drive, just turn off everything and just observe beauty. I gotta tell you something, I am not anti-pleasure. I think the more pleasure we can have, the better. But having a healthy relationship with it, so we don't get into that chasing and hoping and then the disappointment, the high and the low, the high and the low, and the high getting lower and lower. No, we don't need that. Maybe the answer is just saying no to a little bit this week. It's my prayer for you. We'll see. We'll track it. And my prayer is that by the end of the summer, we look back and go, oh man, was that a good summer? Was that an amazing summer? Hey? It's my prayer for you. Practice a little temperance. And that's what we got from the Stoics outside the Christian tradition this week. Actually, I want to come back next week, talk part 2 Stoics on courage. I'm actually very excited about that one too. So you're going to get as good as you got this morning, all right? Maybe even a little bit better, all right? Which is good, okay? Have a great week, everyone.